love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Alyssa Godesky here with my co-host, professional triathlete and world traveler, jet setter, Haley Chura. Haley, we are coming back from a 2-week break that we took while Feisty was at the Olympics, and our feed was all Olympics all the time. So much fun kind of following along with all the excitement over there. But in addition to the Olympic excitement, I counted that Haley Chura's life was equally as exciting as I counted, let's see, like at least, I think, 3 countries, 2 major sporting events, a Taylor Swift concert, maybe like a friend's wedding or something. And then now I think you're back home. I was like, hopefully she makes it back home because IronWomen is back on Monday and you're here. You made it.
I'm here. I'm back. I did a lot during our break. We have a lot to catch up on. And I think your count is about right. Add to that maybe like a zillion hours spent delayed in airports and you got it all.
Airports are great for writing athlete plans. I get some of my most like thrilling inspiration, I feel like, writing athlete plans in the airports.
Sometime, but not between the hours of like midnight and 3 a.m. I don't think any thrilling ideas are coming there. And I feel like that's my prime airport time recently, but we have a lot to catch up on. I think when we last talked, it was right before T100 London, and I was heading to London the next day. I did make it to London with some delays. It was right before my 39th birthday.
Yeah, it was a happy belated birthday.
I managed to turn 39. Here I am, a whole year older. And it's great. I joined you in the 39-year-old club. And I did celebrate that with a major sporting event. I wasn't at the Olympics, but I did get to see Team USA, the women's basketball team, play Germany in a showcase game ahead of the Olympics. And it was so cool. It was so cool. We talked about this before the break, and I was going to give you all the tips because you're headed to a Connecticut Suns game in the near future.
Yes,
and
next week.
Oh, Alyssa, it was so fun. Like, it was so fun. Good. It's just so fun getting to see these athletes, you know, in real life. It's cool to see them on TV. I mean, I've loved the Olympics. I am going to be mourning the Olympics during this little break before we get the Paralympics, but it's just something else when you actually get to like see them in person. And it's like they're real people and they're so incredible at their sport and their craft. And I enjoyed that so much. I would love to go to more. If I had won the T100, I probably would have figured out a way to get myself to Paris, but unfortunately I did not win. It was a race. I don't even know what the right adjective is there. It was a race. It was
well.
Good.
We'll start with a positive that you had a really good swim, and
yes, I was shocked by this swim. Okay, I will also say, while I was not, this wasn't post swim. I'm skipping ahead to the run, but during the run, someone did cheer. I can't wait to hear about this on the podcast.
Oh,
I think they had a British accent too. So I was like, we have at least one listener in the UK.
Right.
So thank you. Thank you to whoever shared that. I think it was like, as I was headed to the finish and I was like, oh, you're gonna have to wait 2 weeks. But, but my swim was shockingly good. I couldn't believe it when we like dove in. And I was on the feet of Lucy Charles Barclay and Sophie Coldwell. I was like, I probably don't belong here, given my recent swim training and my recently advanced age. I felt a little surprised, but I was also like, okay, I'm just going to go with this. But they did pull away a little bit and I wasn't that sad about it. I'm okay swimming my own race.
Yeah, no, I was really thrilled to see you kind of in that position. And then, I mean, spoiler alert.
I came out of the water third. Coming out of the water third in one of these races is very, very impressive. That's actually the highest I come out of the water, I think, in a T100 race. So I was not expecting that.
So that's really good. And then I feel like the bike was a little bit unfortunate. You had a flat that I think, I don't know, you can tell more about it.
I did. And this is actually the first flat I've ever had in a triathlon
in a race.
15 years. Yes, in a race. Okay. Yeah, in a race. Okay, not the first one ever. I guess in training I have, but in a race. And It was a good learning experience. I take full responsibility for this. I had a slow leak in my front wheel, and it was one of those things that I should have addressed earlier than I did. It was what the bike course, I don't know if you could tell from the coverage, it was quite bumpy. It was very, very bumpy. It
Very
was like
bumpy,
riding
I mean,
through 50
technical,
miles
it
through
looked
a
like.
construction zone.
Yeah. I
Yes.
mean, it looked like there was a lot to be, you constantly had to be paying attention because like it seemed like with construction cones, like kind of directing you various ways. And it seemed confusing as like a spectator. And I was just like assuming you all knew where you were going, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I did. I know it was like just down and back 8 laps, but I initially just thought I was just having some struggles with like bike handling, like making the turns and everything. And I think many, many people told me that Jan Frodeno also assumed that was my issue.
Yeah.
Jan Frodeno himself told me he assumed that was my issue when I saw him later on the train. And I am just taking that as a compliment that Jan Frodeno had to learn my name. And he couldn't ignore me on the train. So that was kind of what I thought was I just can't get around these turns, and I'm just kind of not having my best day. I mean, it was an interesting experience because some of the numbers I saw early on the course, like I was doing okay, but I was getting past, like I was standing still. And it reminded me a little bit of when I raced Ironman St. George with a wheel issue. And that probably should have tipped me off that something was maybe not right. And eventually by lap 5, it was so bad. It was like so bad. And I was just like, okay, I think I have a flat. I was like, I was just like, I can like feel the road.
Oh no.
And I'm like, they have neutral mechanic support in these T100 races, which is really wonderful. And so I was on the opposite side of the road from that. And I guess at actually that point, a mechanic actually came up next to me and was like, you have a flat. And I was like, yes, I'm right. Because I didn't want to stop. It's kind of scary to like stop because the lap isn't that big and you have people coming behind you. And so unless you have like a true emergency, you don't necessarily want to just like stop and pull over. And so I didn't want to like stop and feel the tire, but I'm riding tubeless, like tires. And so there's some sealant in there. And so there is some air. That's how I was able to keep riding as long as I did, versus like a tube that would stop you immediately. So I was able to keep going. And I talked to the mechanic, and I think they were going to offer me air at that point just to like fill it up, but I didn't really understand. And so I was like, I can make it around to the like mechanic station, and they would have a wheel there waiting. So they just do a wheel swap. And honestly, once I had that confirmation from the mechanic that I had a flat and it wasn't just me and it wasn't just in my head, my whole perspective really changed. And I'm thankful for that. Like I was in last place, and which is, I mean, last place in a T100 race is still not that bad. I mean, there's only 20 athletes invited. Yeah. And I could see a few of the women ahead of me. I wasn't quite lapped at that point, but I was close to getting lapped. And it was a good learning experience, I think, because I have been the athlete who's lapped people before. And in all honesty, when I've been that person, I have so much admiration for lapped athletes because it is really mentally hard. It's really mentally hard, even on a course like Miami where the lap is like tiny. And so you're actually not even that far behind when you get lapped. It's like, it just feels bad. It feels really bad. And I always have so much admiration for athletes who keep going. And I'm always kind of telling myself, I'm like, they're actually like, if you stand at the finish line, it's not that much time that it takes them to do another lap. And so I'm telling myself this while I am in last place. And I was like, okay, we're just going to finish this race and let's see what happens on the run. And I was a little bit worried that I had like just kind of really put out too much effort going very slow on the bike, but I could still see Marjolaine Pierre and Heidi Kavioja and Grace Tech ahead of me. And I know that there actually were a few other athletes who had bike issues. I think Tamara Jewett crashed going around one of the turns and, you know, still had a very incredible race. And I think that there were like Lucy Byram had a puncture, Lisa Norden had a puncture. Like I mean, I was not alone in my bike issues. So it was just that kind of a day. And so I came into transition and it was an indoor transition, which was like kind of wild. I've never had that experience. It was like in this, giant convention center, and it was so loud because you actually ran through transition like every lap of the 6 lap run. And so there's a lot of people in there. It's very loud. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna like go have a good time. Like a few people had watched the coverage and they were like, oh, you seem like you were smiling always. And I was like, well, everyone knows you're in last place, so you don't need to like cry about it. It's like one of those things. And again, I wasn't like that far out. And I know that these are incredible athletes. And the only weird thing was like, I didn't know exactly how far behind I was on the run and how many laps I was behind people. I started the run because you're just like, I don't know. I know, so I had 6 laps. And I started running and I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. I'm nothing to lose. I'm in last place and we'll just see what happens. It's only 18 kilometers or 11 miles. And then I got to the end of the first lap and I did see Lucy Charles Barclay like pull off to the side and give her husband a hug. And my first thought was, I'm not going to get 20th. So, which is terrible, but it was one of those things. I'm like, I can still finish this. Like I am still healthy and there are still some positives. And I, was racing for 19th and that was kind of neat. And then honestly, I just ran as hard as I could. I felt really good running, and which is very nice on a course like that because it's like just a very small loop out and back. So you can see everyone, and it's nice to be feeling better in that kind of situation just because you see so much. And so it just became, let's see how fast I can get through this run. And if I pass someone, great. If not, that's fine. And I passed a few people. So I was really proud of my run. I was just proud of myself for keeping the pressure on and having, the best day I possibly could, I think, given this situation. And I ended up 15th, and I'm pretty proud of that. So
yeah, you should be. I mean, looking at your run time, it's not every day, Haley, that you get to outsplit Annie Haug on the run at a day like that. Also Emma Pallant-Brown, I think you had one of the top runs of the day. So I think that goes to show like, that you kind of staying positive and being proud of what you could do, like paid off probably quite literally, right? In several ways for you. And I think that's awesome. It was definitely fun again to be spectating that race and seeing the coverage and all of that. It's great to see like what they're able to do with that. And this was I just like couldn't believe you when watching. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just such another stacked field of these names, coming out yet again in these T100 races. It's just you can't let your guard down. And unfortunately, when something like a slow leak on your, front tire happens, it's like, there's just not a lot of room for error there. But I think you definitely, did the right thing. You did what you could control. And I think that's all we can do. Right.
Right. It was a good life experience. I don't need to do it again, but I am really proud of how I handled that. I think in past races, when I've had a bike issue, I think it impacted my run a little bit more. And so I was like proud of myself for turning that around. And I did the next day, I was in an athlete lounge with Annie Haug, and I got to chat with her a little bit. I do think she had been sick since her world record in raw.
I mean, no caveats in this. It's like, I mean, I still hold, I think there's the one time I outran Lucy Charles in her first Ironman like ever. And I'm like, whatever, I outran Lucy Charles that day and never mind anything else. Right. So
yeah. Yes. But it was wild just to be out there and running well on the same course as some of the women that I know are really fast runners. And I unlapped myself, I guess, from Imogen Simmons, who finished second. And so the only person who actually lapped me was Ash Gentle, the winner. And I was like, hey, that's not too bad. And then I, didn't get caught by anyone from behind me. And so there were like definitely some like wins. And I do think it's kind of fun to have that kind of a situation where you are competing with people, but like, it's not necessarily like, exact like direct head-to-head competition. I guess that's kind of probably sometimes how age group racing is, when you have a time trial start and you can like use the people ahead of you and behind you, and they aren't necessarily like neck and neck with you. And so sometimes it's nice to have that head-to-head racing, but sometimes it's nice to just be like, okay, we're just going to use that person and get the most out of ourselves. And that's what I feel like I did. And that was really fun. And then once I crossed that finish line is actually, that's when you'd think I would have calmed down a bit, but no, things continued.
Yeah. So at what point
Ramped
during
up.
this whole event cycle were you like, you know what? I'm going to see T Swift. Like, when did this get inserted into the plan? This is amazing.
It was while I was in London. I need to figure, I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at my credit card statement to figure out the exact
Happy
day.
birthday to me. Let's ring out this decade. Yeah, I love it.
Basically, while I was in London, my sister was in Munich to see Taylor Swift, and the friend she was initially going to go with couldn't make it. And I will admit that prior to leaving for London, I had done a little research on if it was possible to get from London to Munich and in time for the Taylor Swift concert, or if it was possible to get tickets. And I got a little discouraged by how hard it might be. And I initially flew to London being like, I'm not going to try, I'm not going to do it. And then I got to London and I was like, oh, Munich's not that far away. I got to go try doing this. I think it's just it was one of those things that kind of took my brain off the pre-race nerves. And I also think there was a little piece of me that initially was thinking, I'm like, okay, if I got top 10 in the race, I'll go to Munich. And then I was like, no,
it shouldn't
it shouldn't be I should reward myself even without a top 10 finish. I think that sometimes it can be good to have that kind of a reward to keep yourself going. But I'd also think in this situation, it was like, no, you can go ahead and go to Taylor Swift even without a top 10 finish, which is good because I didn't get top 10. So during that time, I ended up buying a plane ticket to Munich. And then I also, the other nice thing was, I think initially when I had looked about changing my flight to and from London, it was going to be about $500. And then because of that global tech outage and all the delays that kept me from getting to London until very, very late, the price came down. And so it was only a $50 change fee. And so I was like, okay, I know that was honestly, I was like, oh my gosh, it went from 500 to 50. It's basically they're paying me to go. But so I'm justifying all this. And then again, I was able to get a ticket with my sister. And so that made a big thing. She already had a hotel room. And then the other part was that I didn't want to bring my bike with me because all of us know that flying with a bike is not very easy. And so the other really cool thing was that my friends, Joe and Steph, who used to live in Bozeman, now live in London, and they came and cheered for me, which was really cool. They actually came to the basketball game with me. And then when I was at the basketball game, I was kind of floating this idea and what do I do with my bike? Because I was thinking about getting another hotel room for another night just to leave my bike in London.
Oh.
Because I couldn't fly from Munich straight to the US. I had to come back to London. So I'm going through all these scenarios and they were like, you could just leave it at our house. And I was like, perfect. So the only crazy thing was that I had to take an Uber with all my ridiculous luggage, across London on Sunday morning, the morning after the race, and then come back to the event site and do my little athlete lounge appearance with Annie Haug.
Oh my gosh.
And then I had to go from there to take a train to Heathrow for the flight to Munich. So it was tight. I might've been a little late. Annie held it down for me. But
nice.
We didn't, at 9 a.m., we didn't really have a throng of fans going to see us. It was during the age group race. So I cheered on the age group race a little bit, but and then immediately got on a train, went to Heathrow, which with just a backpack, Alyssa.
Whoa.
Have you ever done an international flight?
And amazing. I don't think an international flight. Well, no. I mean, I flew to Hawaii because my knee stuff, I could only carry the backpack. And so I flew only with the backpack. Wow. Then I had the knee and the crutches and everything, but it still felt very freeing, I will say, to have just a backpack.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. But I know I made it to Munich and then I landed in Munich and I had not looked into the Munich train system, but Annie had told me it was easy. So I was like, okay, Annie Haug said it's easy because she spent a lot of time in Munich and it was at the Olympic Stadium, the concert.
Oh, fun. Okay.
And she lives part-time at the athlete village there. So she did know the area. So again, this is what we talked about in the athlete village. She helped me plan my Taylor Swift, yes, exactly. And so I was like, Annie says easy. So I just bought a train ticket, hopped on a train. It was the right train, figured out how to while I'm on the train, which thankfully had Wi-Fi, my sister's texting me which tram to get on and how to get to her. And so I was able to get to her, drop the backpack at the hotel, and we like literally got into the stadium with like, we missed Paramore, the opener, but like with like 20 minutes to spare.
Oh my gosh.
But I know. So it was cutting it very close. And this was another thing, like I was willing to take that risk that potentially, especially given all the airplane delays, that I like might not make it, but I was like, I have to try. I have to try. And luckily this is like, that was actually the one flight that I have been on in the last like 2 weeks that was not delayed, on time. And if I had to pick one, it was that one. But Alyssa, I don't know if you saw photos of this Munich like venue, this Olympic stadium and the concert, and how there's like a hill outside, and there was like 50,000 people outside on the hill, like, because you could hear the whole concert from outside. And it was so cool to walk into the concert and just have all these people outside. Everyone's dressed up. Tons of people like bike commuted to this concert.
Oh my gosh,
like there's bikes everywhere. It was just a very different vibe. It's great. It was just great. And then I had, I was so dehydrated and so hungry and so tired and so happy. And it was just like fun to be in that atmosphere, like within 24 hours of finishing a race. And so it was different. It was like exhausting, but it was so good. It was definitely a life experience. I am, I've said it on here many times that I'm so thankful for Taylor Swift and how she inspires me to take risks and try hard things. And I think that even just seeing her in that concert was one of those things. And I will remember that with my sister, that whole experience forever. And I'm really, really thankful for that.
That's so awesome. I'm so glad you did that. When I saw your Instagram pop up, I was like, oh my gosh, is it happening? Because I like did have that sliver of hope the whole time that you would somehow pull this off. So I was really excited to see that.
Thank you. I know maybe your sliver of hope helped, because I was feeling pretty defeated, and then I'm so thankful I pulled it off. And then I did the next day. Oh, that was, you want to know how I felt the next day? I woke up at 10 a.m.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
And I was in so much pain. It was so worth it, but I was like, whoa. And then luckily I went and swam in the Olympic pool in Munich.
That's cool.
Right next to the stadium. It's right next to the stadium. We were staying close. So Hannah and I went over there, and I swam 1K very slowly, but that brought me back to life. Like that was the best thing I possibly do. I swam in 2 Olympic pools on this trip, the London Aquatic Center and the Munich one. And it was, they're beautiful and wonderful. And if anyone gets a chance, they're really great. So that was really special. Felt better. Got myself back on a train to London. And then the fun didn't stop. I went straight from the train. I took train and a bus. I took a London bus. I took every form of transportation to my friend Jo and Steph's house. And then I got to walk through Richmond. They live in Richmond, which is the location of Ted Lasso. So I got to walk by the pub and all these things.
Fun.
Ted Lasso. We got takeaway pizza and beer from a British pub, watch the sunset. We were watching this guy. I thought of you, Alyssa, because there was this guy. It was at 9:00 at night in full swim run gear, wetsuit, paddles, pull buoy, running up and down this hill, running laps up and down this hill near the Thames, prepping for his swim race. I was like, maybe he's going to OneWater.
OneWater is next week, so maybe that's very possible. I
gave him a cheer on his last lap. I had enough beers and I was fatigued enough that I started cheer. Well, I love it when random people cheer for me when I'm exercising, but yeah, it was a cool vibe. And then, finally the next day I did Uber with all my luggage, made it to Heathrow, made it back to the US, and that ended the European leg of my summer break.
And at this point, you're just one luggage, one suitcase. You're just recycling, because this next stage I feel was very different events. You had somehow really nice clothes to be wearing at the next leg of your travels.
That's so nice of you to say that, because I had put some thought. I will give my mom credit, because she made me plan my wedding outfits before London. I was like, I'll do that after London. And no, I'm glad I did it before, because it was the time between London and then I had a double wedding weekend in Bend, Oregon. So that's
what are the odds? Perfect. Yeah.
I know. That's what everyone's like. It was so nice of your friends to make that so convenient for you. And I was like, yes, I know exactly 4 people in Bend, Oregon. They all got married. But no, I'd never been to Bend, and it is a place where a lot of triathletes live. It's a very popular endurance sports community. And it did seem like this was a good opportunity to travel to Bend.
Yeah.
And the first wedding was Fiona Moriarty, who is a pro triathlete and past guest on this show, married Josh Sutton. And it was such a good wedding, Alyssa. It was like triathlon themed vows. I mean, just so great. Lots of endurance athletes there. I was a little fatigued. I had some flight delays getting in there. I did get to swim in the pool in Bend. So this is also
nice.
a pool tour. Very nice pool
Yeah.
in Bend. And I got to, do that. So my dancing was not as good as
not as good as in
everyone
Munich, at the
else's.
Olympic Stadium in Munich.
Yes. Yes. But it was definitely a very, very joyous occasion. And then the next morning I got to do a little running around Bend. I attempted an interval run. I learned I needed more water in my body. Well, I blew up on an interval run. And then I went to a second wedding, and that was for one of my athletes, Christina Gonzalez. And the craziest thing, Alyssa, though, was that the after party for Josh and Fiona's wedding was at the same brewery as the reception for Christina and Jana's wedding. Yes. And so I should have posted this. I took a picture, like when you're walking in, they had like, sometimes they'll have signs for like where different weddings, like locations are and all that kind of thing. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to both. But I know, and it was so convenient. So, but another just beautiful, beautiful occasion, and another triathlon heavy wedding theme. Oh, I mean, it wasn't that triathlon heavy, but it was just very, a lot of triathletes, endurance athletes. So a very, very fun event. And I capped it all off yesterday morning with a run with another past guest, Lindsay Corbin, who was another Bend resident. She was back from Paula Finley, Eric Lagerstrom. It was a very popular wedding weekend. I'm sure if we looked at the calendar, there weren't a whole lot of races last weekend. And so it was just a popular one, but I got to run with Lindsay, catch up with her a little bit, with another one of my athletes. And it was a great trip. It was a great trip. Awesome. I got to see a lot. Have you been to Bend?
I have not, and it's like high on the list of places to go to. They do this like really cool, it's like paddle pull or something race where you like ski, you paddle, you pull something else. I don't know. You do a bunch of like random sports, I feel like. Jesse Thomas
pedal. You pedal.
Yeah, that's the bike. I was missing. Yeah.
I'm trying to think this. Okay, yes, I have seen that.
And so I've always kind of been like, I want to go when I can do that. And I'm like, learning on the skiing front. That's like a work in progress. So I feel like that is something, but I shouldn't be using that as an excuse. Like you said, you shouldn't use, placing top 10 to go to Taylor Swift concert. I shouldn't use a race as an excuse to just go check out this like endurance mecca. I think the trails are really cool out there. Every picture I've seen, it just seems quite lovely to like maybe do a little vacation, traincation, any of the above.
I did not take enough photos. And I have to give a shout out to Talia Rosenberg, who's my other athlete who I actually stayed with. And she gave me a lot of tour of different trails and different coffee shops and that kind of thing. Also very important. So I got to a glimpse of Bend. I need to go back with the bike. I do think the bike infrastructure really surprised me. Like just everywhere there's bike lanes, there's like signs that's like bikes on road. There was a crit race while I was in town. I mean, there's a lot going on. It was interesting. There was a lot. So if people want to, 2 thumbs up for Bend, Oregon, for training location, wedding location, all that kind of stuff. But I will say it is good to be home. I feel very behind on all of life.
Cowboy's probably so excited to see you.
Yes, I think he's like, who are you? Did you bring me food? But it's, I'm rejuvenated and ready to be back podcasting, excited to chat with you, and then just kind of get some reflection time on being thankful for what triathlon and sport has brought to my life, because all of those things were made possible by triathlon and sport and the people that come into your life and the places you get to go. And I think the connections you make, they don't just end when you're racing, as seen by kind of meeting up with Lindsay, who's retired now a few years, and I love that idea that you can kind of fall into those old patterns, even when you're doing different things with your life. And, you know, we keep these connections forever. So very, very
Totally.
cool things, and very busy couple weeks. And then of course, watching a lot of the Olympics. I
Oh
will say,
yeah.
after Christina and Jana's wedding, we did stay up and watch the women's marathon.
Oh,
And when you're on
whoa.
Pacific time, it started at
Yeah.
11 p.m., which is
Oh man.
late to start
Yeah.
watching, but it was so good.
It
I
was
mean,
so good.
all the events were so good, but that one ending kind of the track events for the Olympics was so good. That finish by Safan Hassan was wild.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Olympics, I think, just really outdid themselves this year. I think it like fulfilled every expectation I had for them. And I spent a lot of the last 2 weeks watching all of those and just soaking it all in. I still have a lot I still plan on watching because there's no way to kind of get it all in and like keep any sort of normalcy in life. But like you said, the Paralympics will be coming up soon. And then also in the meantime here, the Tour de France Femme starts this week, right? Yeah. So tomorrow. And they do like a double stage one day or something. I need to read some more about it and kind of get up to speed on that. But I'm excited to just keep riding the wave. I have to say that.
It's been a great sports summer. And like I was saying about going to the basketball game, I feel like the Olympics does kind of expose us to different sports. And then I end up like looking up, who are these athletes? And then I end up being like, wow, they're awesome. And then all of a sudden I'm, caring about these other sports, and it gives us more things to be fans of. So
totally. And Haley,
very, very cool time.
I will hopefully be kind of talking maybe to some of the Olympians this weekend. I'm headed to the Boston Triathlon with Kelly O'Mara from the If We Were Riding podcast and other feisty media productions. And we're going to be there kind of talking to triathletes at the amateur Boston Triathlon race, talk to people about why they're there, who's racing, that sort of thing. And then we will also be doing interviews for Super Tri Boston, which is there after the amateur race on Sunday. And so I think Taylor Spivey, I know she was going to be there. I think that Beth Potter is like rumored. I don't know. They haven't I haven't seen any sort of official list. So I'm nervous to be like name dropping when I don't know if I'll live up to these expectations, but I do think it's going to be a pretty stacked field, and I'm excited to kind of get to talk to them, see how everyone's feeling after the Olympics race, and see what kind of happens at Super Tri.
This is your first time expecting a Super Tri race in person.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear how that goes. My friends who live in London had gone to the London races, I think, in the past, and they talk about how fast it is. It's just like, and it's like tiny circuit, like such a small circuit, so you can see so much, and just really fast racing. And those Olympic triathlons were so cool, so fun to watch. Amazing outcomes. Cassandra Brand winning in France for France. I mean, that was really cool. Julie Darren, like who you had just interviewed, kind of shocking us all with that silver medal. And then Beth Potter, who hopefully you'll see in Boston this week, getting to get that bronze. And I think Beth is a big Taylor Swift fan. So you'll have to ask.
Oh, that's good to know.
If you get a chance, I wanted to interview her, and that's like my number one questions were like, what, is she going to make it to the London shows? Like, all that.
Yeah. Has she made room in her schedule for the Eras tour? So
you got to get to the bottom of that. What's she wearing? What's her favorite song? All that kind of stuff. Those are the hard hitting questions I'm expecting from you in the coverage this weekend.
Oh, I love it. Well, Haley, thanks for giving us the wrap up on everything. I think I'm excited to be back in the routine with you and chat these next few weeks. I think we have some exciting content coming up for people in the lead up to the World Championships in Nice. But first, we have a really great interview for people this week.
I know. I have a trivia question for you, Alyssa, before we get into this interview.
Let's do it.
Do you know the average age for women swimmers at the Paris Olympics?
I don't, but let me guess. I would guess 24.
22.4.
Whoa.
Years of age. What about the U.S. Olympic swimming trials that happened a few months ago, or a month or so ago?
The U.S. 20.8 years old.
So close. 20.6.
Oh, I was really close.
You were so close. And I'm curious, like, why do you think that is? Like, I mean, that's young, very young.
It is young, but I guess I feel like so many of them are like collegiate swimmers, right? And like you hear about that quite often. And so you're young when you're in college, like a lot of times you're young, you know, like, I mean, I think I was 21 when I graduated. So yeah, I just kind of skewed. Knowing the average age for the Olympics was helpful because I figured our trials would be younger.
Even younger. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this myself and I'm like, I think why does it skew younger in college age? Probably because when you're in college is usually the time you have the best pool access, coaching access, hopefully training time, and a group of people that you get to train with. And we are seeing some changes. Katie Ledecky obviously had an incredible Olympics, and I think she's 27 and has committed to LA 2028. So we definitely are going to have her around for another 4 years, which is amazing. And someone else who is going against that trend is this week's guest on our show, and that is Gabby Rose, who at 46 years old, she competed in the 100 and 200 meter breaststroke events at the 2024 U.S. Olympic swimming trials. She stunned the swimming world by not just becoming the oldest person to qualify for the U.S. trials and race at the U.S. trials, but also racing incredibly well. Gabby qualified for the semifinals in both events. She finished 11th in the 100 meter breaststroke and 16th in the 200. Her times of 1:08:32 in the 100. I mean, that's 1 minute and 8 seconds for 100 meters, long course breaststroke.
Nuts.
I'd be psyched if I did that freestyle, but and 2:30:13 in the 200, they were significant, not just because they're incredibly fast times, but because Gabby, who is an Olympian, she swam in both the 1996 and 2000 Olympic Games, they were her best times. And they're set more than 2 decades after she initially retired from the sport. So I talked to Gabby about what it was like to race in a swimming pool in Lucas Oil Stadium, what has changed about training and gear since she last competed as a pro swimmer in the early 2000s, including the all-important question of why swimmers now wear 2 caps. And I also asked her what it was like to have her 10-year-old daughter cheering her on while she was at trials. And Gabby and I do talk a little bit about aging and how she's changed her own training, her strength training, and her nutrition in recent years, and how we all might be underestimating the age when women are in their prime athletically. So I will have that full conversation with Gabby Rose right after the break. Hi, Gabby. Welcome to the IronWomen podcast.
Hi, Haley. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited about this conversation. And I do want to start by saying congratulations on your recent incredible performances at the U.S. Olympic swimming trials. And thank you on behalf of basically every swimmer I know who is over the age of 25, but I think even some under 25. My phone was blowing up. I mean, most of us don't know you, but we were so excited to watch you. And it was just so, so cool. And we felt like you were just representing all of us who have had these goals when we were in our late teens and early 20s, and getting to watch you revisit them. I think we were all living vicariously through you. So thank you. I just wanted to start the interview with that. But I know you have been on a lot of big media platforms recently. I read about you in Sports Illustrated, on NPR. You featured heavily in NBC's trials coverage. Did you enjoy that attention?
I have been really blown away by how my story resonated or sparked something in people, and then the subsequent media attention. It wasn't anything that I was anticipating going into trials, and I have been so pleasantly surprised by, obviously I didn't make the Olympic team, and I often feel like so much of our media, the focus going into the Olympics is all about, gold medals. And I was just so pleasantly surprised that people appreciated my story and the nuances to it. And then I didn't have to win the gold medal or make the Olympic team. It was good enough, just my efforts and my performance. And people were amazed by the idea of me winning a heat, that was good enough for a lot of people and the media that day. So I love that. I'm really grateful that they could see that and highlight it, and especially in some amazing publications with some really talented writers is very flattering and kind. But just happy for kind of, I guess, the US public too, in general, that we like, again, a more nuanced story about sport that wasn't just black and white.
Right. We've seen this surge in attention on women's sports recently. And obviously you're part of that, but there is more nuance, like you said, in some of these stories. And we're seeing this different human side of athletes, especially women. I would have, friends who swim at different schools, and they're texting me and they're like, Gabby Rose is swimming in 5 minutes. She's up in 2 heats or something like that. And I'm like, getting peacock and making sure I'm watching this.
I'm still trying to make sense of the reaction. And I enjoy hearing from other people, like, what was it about my story that sparked something? But, life is complicated, complex. It's not just black and white. And so we're looking for people that are more maybe relatable and have overcome things. And I think women's sports, like, we're on a trajectory of moving that way. And there have been barriers there. And so I think it's something to celebrate. And the theme of aging keeps coming up too. So there's something about women having more in their prime than they maybe once was thought. Let's chime in on that too.
They agree. Women are in their prime for a lot longer than we once thought. But I would love to hear more about the whole Olympic trials experience, because I think this was your third US Olympic trials. Is that right? You in 2000, 2004. And this was a little different, swimming in Lucas Oil Stadium. What was that like?
Oh gosh, it was so different. So last time when I made the team was in 2000 in Indianapolis at the natatorium there, maximum seating capacity, 3,000, typical swimming venue. And then I swam in Long Beach, and then the hiatus from trials began. And I actually went in 2021 to watch it in Omaha, trials in a basketball arena. And I was just like, I don't know how they're doing this. Like, this is the energy of this and the pressure, the whole spectacle of it. I'm like, I could never, I couldn't. I'm glad that we didn't have that in my time. So I found myself there 3 years later, and it was awesome though. I'm so glad those kids get to have that experience, that they really made us feel special. The whole venue is incredible, but just the athlete lounge and the energy of that stadium. I don't know how to describe it, but the warm-up pool would be like shaking from the warm-up pool was like on the other side of the curtain from the competition pool, and it would be reverberating as I was swimming, which I've never experienced before. But the energy was palpable. I had to wear, I'm a 46-year-old woman. I don't go to big concerts or sporting events, and I just don't, my energy system isn't exposed to something like that, very consistently. So it really felt like a lot. So I was wearing my noise canceling headphones, listening to really mellow Taylor Swift, and, just trying to stay calm. And then that worked for me. And it was really hard to kind of wrap my head around this idea of marching out, even though you and I were used to ready rooms, right? We know what that's like.
So nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's so nerve-wracking. I try to explain it to people who didn't grow up as swimming, but you sit in this room with the 7 other people in your heat, and you just sit there and get ready.
Yeah.
And then you walk out underneath a 40-foot projection of yourself.
Again, never experienced anything like that before. But it was awesome. The day before I was watching prelims, the day before I swam, I was watching prelims. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to walk out there. The nerves are going to take over. And my friend who coaches, she's like, no, you're going to get out there and you're going to wave to your daughter, Annie, my 10-year-old who's in the stands, and you're going to get up there and swim. You know how to swim. Just wave to your daughter, think about something else. And so that's what I focused on. And then after that, it kind of clicked in the whole ready room thing. I thought I handled that well. And I was just, there's part of me oh my God, I'm in the ready room with Lily King and Lydia Jacoby and all these swimmers that I look up to so much. So that was really fun. And just, yeah, going back to my previous trials experience, something that was so different is this is in an age before, like I swam in an age before the smartphone and before social media. And so when I was doing my swimming thing, people really didn't know what I was doing, I felt like. And then prelims would never heats of Olympic trials were never televised, and it certainly wasn't in prime time national coverage. So that was a whole different thing to kind of have an awareness that a lot more people were tuned in and aware of what I was doing. And so this time around, so going back to the ready room in 2000 at the Sydney Olympic Games before the Trinidad Am, I remember not being in a good place and the ready room getting to me. You can be like ready to go, and then something about that atmosphere does something to you. You can lock in or you can lose it. And I didn't feel like I was as strong as I could be. So 24 years later, I worked with a sports psychologist, and that was awesome. And we addressed some of those ready room concerns and like how to deal with things. So it ended up being a really joyful experience walking out there. And my favorite thing from Indy had to just be the crowd.
The crowd was amazing. I think there were 17,000 people one of the nights that you swam, which is an incredible crowd for swimming, and then many millions of us watching on TV, of course. You swam best times in both of your events, the 100 and 200 breaststroke, and you handled those nerves. And so obviously you mentioned working with a sports psychologist, but do you think that there is something to that, to having that experience and possibly having had ready room experience in the past, even though it was 24 years prior, that helped you this time?
Absolutely. So I think I, could tell myself and relate to, I've been there at the highest level, done this at the finals of the Olympic Games, and had lots of practice as a professional athlete. So that I knew that was in there. It's kind of been fun. I think there are a few local meets here in Southern California where we had ready rooms, and I was like, okay, this is kind of building up in practice. This is what it's like in my 20s as a professional athlete. Everything felt so high stakes, and I don't know if it's that athlete part of me, but I just think I have different life perspective being in my 40s, and this isn't everything. I viewed this as bonus or icing on the cake, and this was like a celebration, and it was an opportunity to see what I was capable of.
This one was a little bit different. You kind of had already won by getting there, and yet you still were able to go a best time twice. How did you keep yourself motivated through that and not just be like, okay, I'm here, I made it, I can just have fun?
Yeah, that's just not my nature, just to be like, oh, it's good enough just to show up. That was a familiar kind of mantra that I was hearing. You've already won. And I was so proud of myself for getting there. Once I made the cut, it really was about taking it completely seriously to see what I was capable of. I was just loving what I was experiencing, and I just wanted to see more. Like, it was truly beautiful, empowering, inspiring just to see like, oh, I'm doing this work, I'm following this plan, and I'm like, changes are happening in my body and it's positive, and I'm making these drops, and I just wanted to see that through. And so the nerves this time were maybe a little different because it was this feeling of like, I should be able to do something really, really remarkable. The training's all indicating there. And I so wanted to see it.
And what was it like having your daughter there? I mean, that is a little bit different than your past trials experiences. And it sounds like it was a calming effect, kind of being able to wave at her as you were out there, but that had to be really special. You mentioned she's 10 years old. She'll remember this forever.
Yeah. I'll always cherish her being there. And I'm so glad, she's heard of me as a professional athlete or heard about that chapter of my life, but that she actually got to see me on my game, performing at my best. And then she got to see how warm the audience was. I'm really grateful for that. She at some point in this journey kind of got frustrated with me. Like, you don't think you're going to make the Olympic team? Then why are you doing this? Like, what's the point? because, you know, she was having to make sacrifices too. Like, we got to get to bed early, Annie, to do, you know, like I've got training or I'm really tired. So she kind of didn't really understand what I was doing. And then I love that she got to see that just giving it my best effort, just doing my best was enough. It didn't have to be about the end result, that I could be like really proud of myself and that other people could see and recognize what I had done also. And so there was this shift in her from like kind of not really maybe appreciating what I was doing to being really, really proud of me. And she gave me strength. Like I said, when I was doubting, like, oh my gosh, when the worst of those demons are coming out, you know, before any athletic performance, I just was like, I gotta be strong for my daughter. I gotta do this.
The most common question I had from people watching trials, and this is even a question I have because it's been a while since I did a major swim meet, was about the double capping and the swim caps and how tight is that top cap? Can you tell us about like the technology changes in the suits and caps since the early 2000s?
Yeah. Last summer, I spent a lot of time getting used to what they call the dome cap. When I first tried it, it like slipped right off my head. So that's what you have to wear the two caps so it has something to grip on. And yes, it's extremely tight. You like put it on probably like 3 minutes before you swim. I mean, for me, because I don't like to like wait till the last second to be fidgeting with anything, but it's really tight, but smooth, feels good. The suit is not so different from 2004 era, which is the last time I swam. Like there's no zippers to deal with. They're just, still take a long time to get on. But back to the cap, this is something I don't understand. So why do they rip off the top cap right when they're done? I'm like, it's not excruciating pain, the dome cap. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I left my goggles on and my cap just because like I can still see the scoreboard and like know what's going on and the cap's fine. But apparently that's a thing to like rip off the caps when you're done. But I'll get there eventually.
Okay, because it did. We were wondering, I'm like, is it excruciating or do they want to show us the logo of the cap underneath? Okay, it's maybe just a fad.
Yeah.
You mentioned aging earlier, and I swam the 2008 Olympic trials in Omaha. I was 22 and I felt so old. Like I felt like the oldest person at that meet. I do think things have changed since then, and we are seeing a lot of athletes in their later 20s and their 30s, even making the Olympic team. And so I feel like, I recognize the irony in asking this question, but does it feel strange to have the media and a lot of people making such a big deal about your age?
Yes and no. I mean, I recognize I think 10 years or 9 years older than the next youngest competitor. So that's significant. And I think somebody who's like in their not early 40s, like mid 40s, that's different. So I get that. And at the same time, I don't relate. Like I'm just focusing on my swimming. Like I feel young, strong, like powerful. I don't think of myself as different, but yeah, there are like these little reminders, and certainly with how the media was about being older.
I feel like sometimes it's something I've been called the oldest at several recent races. So our listeners are very familiar with this because I'm like, wait, when did this happen? But I've kind of taken it as a badge of honor. And actually in triathlon, Annie Haug, who's 41, just broke the world record in Ironman by, in an incredible time. So our sport is a little bit different and most participants skew a little older. Swimming is just a little different, but maybe we've been wrong about swimming. I feel like that's maybe what you're showing.
Yeah. And I swam 100 freestyle this past weekend, and I hadn't trained much freestyle, and I was less than 2 seconds off my best time. I'm like, okay, like.
Wait, we need to say what this time was. You swam a 57-second 100-meter free. Is that right?
Yeah, 57.0, 100-meter free. And my best time was a 55.1. Again, heavily favoring breaststroke training because it feels so much easier than freestyle these days. But happy to pull that one off.
So it's incredibly fast. I know there's a lot of triathletes who would give a lot to have a day like that. You mentioned strength training, and I did have one of the athletes that I coach, like it must have been seconds after you had touched the wall. She was sending me your Instagram and the videos of your strength training and being like, look at this, because it's very impressive. Is that something you did when you were younger, or is this new in your, your next iteration as a professional athlete?
So the type of training is new. Like I've been lifting weights since, gosh, I was 12 or 13. And all through college, and really enjoyed lifting weights and believe it translated into fast swimming. It's just I guess the technology or the science has improved a lot. So it's not just about lifting heavy weights. It's also periodization. Like we had a very specific plan of what we were doing in the weight room that correlated with the swim training. So everything was really well thought out and in support of one another, of like maximizing my potential and setting me up for a good rest. That weight training is so fun with the explosive training, like especially, as we were decreasing the workload in the pool, same thing was happening in the weight room, and just, starting, it's all kind of working towards feeling really fast and swimming high in the water during taper.
Do you have a favorite exercise?
Oh, I love the landmine. It's a bar that is attached to something so it stays fixed, and I'm squatting down, and then I thrust forward, like with bringing my arms overhead and take that bar with the weight above my head. And it's very similar to that drive forward an extension that you have in breast, driving off the legs too.
And then what about your swim training? Is it different than when you were in college or even in your early 20s swimming as a pro?
I think the biggest difference is the recovery days and just how important it was to space those out. Last summer when I was trying to get the cut, I completely overdid it. The philosophy was like, oh, if I have time in the water, I got to be like killing it. And there wasn't really a plan on like what we were like the specific days and what we were trying to accomplish. It's kind of a good thing that I got sick and I didn't make my cut, and we had to double down and like, okay, I knew I was capable of getting the cut. And Scott, my coach, he of course believed that, and he really helped us come up with a program that I believed in. And it was nice collaborating with him and knowing like everything we're doing on a certain day is for this benefit. And versus in the past, I felt more informed. I felt like there was more science, and I could see the progress. And again, like another element to this was the periodization of it. Like there was a set plan and kind of 3 mini seasons that we have embarked on, all with the goal of peaking at trials, like getting the cut after the first season, having a longer season to build my base and keep getting stronger, and then really peak at trials.
I think from the outside looking in, it kind of just looked like this was like smooth sailing, very easy. You just go to trials, go best times. But obviously that wasn't the case. It took you several tries just to get that qualifying time, that 1:10, before you're going 1:08s at trials. So what was that like? Was there ever a moment when you thought you might not make it?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern after the summer was I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, the stars have to align for me to be in a meet and kind of be healthy or not be injured or something. You can go to several meets, but you're really trying to peak at like one meet. And so you realize how precious a window of time that is. And so that first training cycle, I felt like we did a lot of things right. I worked through an injury. Things were looking really good. And then I got really sick, like 5 days out of the taper meet. And so was in bed, like, was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, could barely take my daughter to school. And then I made it. So, and there might have been a blessing in that. Like, there was no expectation there. I was kind of like, we're just going to see where I am, like how far off I am, like at the meet. And I made it. So again, that might have been a blessing in disguise.
I know you also coach. Are you training with mostly kids, or do you get to train with some adult athletes? What is that like?
Oh, it has been so fun. So I've been coaching for just 2 years now at Alpha Aquatics in LA. Scott and I coach high school club swimmers, and they're very hardworking, and Scott's workouts are killer. And that's been so much fun coaching with him. And we have all our high schoolers. And then we have this one guy, Pavel, who was the other athlete from Alpha that went to trials. He's 100 and 200 breaststroker. So, and he's just like in a league of his own. He's so fast. So I mainly trained with the high school, like the breaststroke boys. We get up and race. They like the whole team, the whole group loves racing. So it's just kind of like Scott lines you up and like, he's like, find somebody to race with, find somebody to race with. And so they really pushed me and made me better. So that was a really fun part of going from coaching, being like, these workouts are so hard, I could never do them, to like getting in the water and like, oh my gosh, I'm keeping up with it. And I don't know if you had this is a fun part of swimming, that it's co-ed, right? And you can sometimes beat the boys, right? So it was good to get in there, mix it up, and occasionally take on the guys. So I really enjoyed that. That's something that helped me feel youthful.
Yeah, it sounds like you like the energy of swimming with high schoolers.
Yeah, I really did, because they're just such good kids, and they work so hard, and it brought out the best in me. Like I owe a lot to just that training environment. And on the other end of the spectrum, like I was doing master swimming too, which has been a great community for me for decades now. I would do some training with UCLA Masters, and that was always long course and great people to race. And then another master's practice would be like my recovery, and I'd always be in the back, and they were like, do you ever work hard? Like, how are you doing this? Always recovery day, I'd go with them. Yeah.
That's the best. It is kind of nice to know that you take your recovery days easy, because I feel like when I was just a swimmer, I was very much like, I raced everything. Like I liked going fast for warm up. I was that person that everyone hated. Right?
Yeah.
And now that I'm a little older and a triathlete, if anyone like goes too fast on any of my easy workouts, I'm like, no, I will just let you go. I'll see you later, that kind of thing. And that, I feel like that's been a bit of maturity on my part, but it sounds like for you, you're not afraid to go easy.
No, not afraid at all. Like I know, yeah, this was just a big learning, especially after last summer, just about the importance of recovery and taking it easy. And that was part of my training. And it's hard sometimes to back off.
And what about nutrition? I know that you posted on social media about changing your protein intake, I think, as you've gotten older. Have you always been just really good about nutrition, or has that changed as you've gone on for this goal? Okay.
I do not think I was disciplined when it came to nutrition, like in college or probably afterwards.
The guidance was very different when in like the early 2000s. I mean, I feel like the nutrition guidance is much healthier today, it seems like.
Yeah, much better information. I think I also, like it kind of at that time, there were a lot of eating disorders going on, and I was concerned that I could see how it could I could get into a situation where that would be a slippery slope if I really started like getting so focused on that. So I kind of never let myself go there. And now I'm just so grateful for all the information that's out there. Like, okay, have your protein shake within 30 minutes of completing exercise. Okay, I can do that. Have your carb drink with some electrolytes during practice. And that was a huge
taking in like calories during swimming. Because I feel like when I swam, even it was like, no, nothing.
Can you imagine 2 hours of hard training and like no carbs, and I'm like, it just makes so much sense. I'm replenishing, so I can keep doing more. And none of my practices were 2 hours. So like the maximum an hour and a half. So that was really, that made a huge difference. And then I did some genetic testing in 2022. And yeah, speaking of not being disciplined, so I did some genetic testing, and then I was like, oh, I have to like change all these things. And but like, once I knew what I needed to change and like what was causing inflammation, I was like, okay. And I haven't been disciplined in that area, but once I had the information specific to my body, it's kind of like, I couldn't help but, check the ingredients and make the changes. And then, over time, it just kind of became like my system, and I didn't feel like I was depriving myself. It just like I found foods that worked, and, I kind of slimmed down, and I did feel better in my thinking, like less foggy in my thinking, and my body felt better. So that was good training for me, just like about the discipline and having systems, so I could take that into really, really dialed in focus on nutrition during the past year.
I have people ask me all the time about how fast swimming is now, and the times are just so much faster than they were 20 years ago. And I do think that's part of it, or even faster than when we had the neoprene suits, the suit era, which I got to do one race in one of those suits in 2008. Oh, it was crazy. It was so crazy.
What happened? But
you would jump into the pool and you just float. But we are seeing faster times now than the suit era. And I feel like part of that has to be nutrition, because when I was swimming early 2000s, in college, I do feel like we would do these, crazy 400 IM workouts, and we wouldn't even have Gatorade. It would be nothing, maybe a bottle of water. I can't imagine that now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that nutrition is just, it's so much better. The information and makes so much sense that you can perform better, just following pretty basic guidelines like that. Yeah, you should be replenished.
Yeah, it makes sense now.
Yes,
Yeah.
But we didn't have that information then.
No, there have been some good things with time. Gabby, you have had multiple retirements during your career. I think you retired immediately after college and then went on to make the Olympic team a few months later, came back from retirement, retired maybe after that, and then came back as a pro. You retired after you're pro and you've come back. And I want to hear your thoughts on changing your mind and how that's okay.
Yeah. All those things, I genuinely thought I was done at the time. And I'm so glad that whenever my declaration or decision was, that I didn't feel bound to that by anybody. I genuinely just changed my mind. I was going along with my life and realizing wait a second, what if I regret this, or what am I missing, or or just what if I pursue this? And I'm really glad that I had the courage all those times to get back in it and get after it. And, maybe the one time that 2004, I got mono right before the trials, 3 weeks before the trials, and just missed making the Olympic team. And then after that, I was really hard on myself. I'm done. I don't deserve to be in the sport. I was 26, which at that time just felt ancient. And so, but I would have a really hard time watching the Olympics, but I didn't even let myself dream or think about even doing coaching. I just wanted to be out of swimming. And so that wasn't a good thing. It wasn't a good thing to completely cut myself off. So yeah, I would encourage people leave that door open, and you can change your mind and just feel what you're being drawn to in your heart.
And you mentioned Taylor Swift earlier. I've gotten from your reels that you are a big Swiftie. I am too, and I think by extension, most of our audience needs to be as well. But what song were you listening to in the ready room?
Well, yeah, this is going to be a longer story than just answering that question. I'm really grateful to Taylor because she helped me with my tempo in both of my races. So for the 100 breaststroke, I have a tendency, I just go out, and being controlled in races is not my thing, but it's very important in both the 100 and 200 breaststroke. And so I just needed the first 25, but Daddy, I Love Him was the 1.5 tempo that I needed. And then I shut that down and finished the race. But that's what I went to. So that's what I was listening to beforehand. And then for the 200 breaststroke, I was so proud of myself. I've never, ever swum that controlled a 200 in my life. And so the key for that morning swim was just controlling that first 100. And it was Who's Afraid of Little Me, 1.9, 2.0 tempo there. And I just loved, I was listening to Torture Post Department the whole week, 33 delightful songs to choose from to fit the mood. And I'm glad that those songs were so good for my particular races. So
Have you seen the Eras tour?
no, but Annie and I, we're running out of time, but we really want to make it happen. So
Well, I heard you're headed to Europe soon. Are you going to Paris?
we are going to go. We're going to go cheer on a friend of mine competing for the women's water polo team, Jordan Rainey.
Oh, very cool. And so is there a chance that you can like I'll stop. I'll stop. But I'll just cross my fingers. I'll cross my fingers for you.
If going to Paris Watch Olympics wasn't enough, yes, we need to tack on the Eras tour. But we can dream.
Very worth it. It's very, very worth it.
Here.
I saw her in Nashville actually. So that was like last May, and it was so incredible. It was so incredible. And then I actually saw her again.
After Tortured Poets Portman came out?
Yes.
Oh, good. You had to.
I know this one is going to and it was even better with the Tortured Poets department. Like I am just like in awe. I don't know how she was able, like those songs weren't even written a year ago. And now she's like performing them with visuals and choreography, and it's so incredible. I'm just in awe. I mean, she inspires me a lot too, just to like work harder at everything. Because I've never seen someone work so hard.
Yes, just her commitment. Yeah, she will reinvent herself. She will find a way, but she just never writes herself off.
No, it's a good lesson for all of us. Well, have an excellent time in Paris at the games and at all the other fun European festivities. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. And good luck with your other swimming too. Like you said, you're still swimming. We need to make sure we tell everyone that we can still watch you. I saw, your times from that LA invite were incredibly impressive, and it's fun. You're showing us what we can do. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gabby.
Thank you, Haley.
Alyssa, you know that in my research, I was so psyched to find out that Gabby loves Taylor Swift, another Swiftie. This is like a kind of a Taylor Swift podcast today. And when we were off the air, she actually asked me for my top 3 Tortured Poets Department songs. And I'm curious about yours. So I'll give you a second to think, because I did just like ambush you with this.
Okay.
I mean, or do you want... Can I share what mine are? And then is that going to influence yours, or should I go ahead?
No, I don't think it would influence me. You can go ahead.
I already told Gabby this, so I can't.
Okay.
I mean,
you can't take it. Yeah.
Change.
Okay.
I said my top 3 right now are Down Bad. So I love crying in the gym.
Yeah.
Florida, which I think we've said on this show before. And I also love So High School. I will admit, seeing some of the performances in person, like Taylor really brings to life The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived and Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, but they're still my favorite. I love those 3. And Gabby said that actually Love of My Life, or no, that's not the song. LML like is her and her daughter's favorite, which I thought was fascinating. And then that was one of our surprise songs in Munich. So I felt pretty special. And then she said she also kept listening to Robin at trials, and she has a reel with like her and her daughter. And for anyone who isn't a Swiftie, Robin is a song that's about kind of childhood innocence. And if you go to her Instagram and watch that reel, it's really, really, it made me tear up a little. So
I love this because I think it just like, it shows how Taylor Swift just speaks to women at different stages in life, right? I think it's just so good. Okay, so I would go with, it does change with the Tortured Poets Department album, because like sometimes I do find myself, first of all, I feel like I still haven't even really like soaked them all in because there's so many songs. But anyway, I would go with Florida as well. I think that's a really fun song. I would also go with I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. I think it's just really fun to sing along to. And it like when you're, dealing with like you can be dealing with anything that you don't want to be dealing with. And it's like a good anthem for that. So that's a good one. And then The Bolter, I think would be number 3.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Cool. Good picks. It is interesting. I know it is some 31 songs on an album, and definitely things can change. And it's I mean, big thanks to Gabby for sharing some of her story and for being such a role model for all of us. I'll also add that I talked to Annie Haug a little bit about what it was like to, be labeled the oldest so frequently. And she seemed a little tired of that.
Oh,
So she's like, everyone just talks about my age. And I was like, well, the races you weren't at, I took your spot. And so, but we're all showing that maybe we can be setting best times, even in a sport where the average age at the trials, 20 years old. At age 46, Gabby is going best times. She's not done yet. And it shows all of us that, it's okay to follow our own path.
yes. Haley, well, welcome back to life in Bozeman, and I look forward to kind of hearing it maybe a more mundane update. I don't know if Haley Chura ever has a mundane week of her life, but I look forward to sharing Super Tri and Boston Tri updates next week. And until then, enjoy being home. Tell Cowboy I said hello.
I will. Bye, Alyssa. Good luck in Boston. You've been listening to the IronWomen podcast, hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
IronWomen is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natishan.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.